1, 2, 3, 4.
How many niggers are in my
dead nigger store?
You know what would be a great movie for the title Get Out? A sequel to Pacific Rim, in which a portal breach opens on the US-Mexico border, and the US government revitalizes the Jaeger program to protect the border wall from the illegal aliens.
Today we face the monsters that are at our door.
Instead, we got this. Some horror comedy flick by director Jordan Peele. Get out of here with that shit. Nah, I'm pulling your leg. Pacific Rim sucked ass, and I'm not even going to explain myself. When I first looked into Get Out, honestly, I was intrigued. A horror movie starring a pair of floating eyeballs in the main role was a bold choice by Peele. Impressed with his chutzpah, I gave Get Out a chance. And you know what? It was actually garbage. Who saw that one coming? And it's not even due to the race-baiting hullabaloo, because who cares if Mr. Half and Half, married to a gem who's the sister of the founder of Bait Feed, makes a racially charged film? That ain't racist. It's just about racism. But it's entirely even-handed about it by making all of the black people good and all of the white people abhorrently evil, with no in-between at all. Pretty black and white, eh?
Part of being black in this country, and you know, I presume being any minority, is constantly being told that we're seeing racism where there just isn't racism.
Yeah, and it really doesn't seem to be getting through to you, does it? But you know, if this is such a problem, you could always just... I'm just pulling your leg too, Peele. No, in all seriousness. No, but really, this is kinda interesting, because you're not black. Are you, Peele? You're mixed.
People, it's inevitable. A beige horizon. Brown meets white, no use in disguising. Beige power, mixy mix arousing. Gonna look the same by the year 3000.
Alright, that's enough of that. I did say the movie's not shit because of race baiting, and I meant it. No, the movie is, by its own merits, simply not very good. The direction was okay, the acting ranged from good to serviceable for a script lacking greatly needed subtlety. I don't remember the score, so meh. The jump scare noises were as dumb as in any other horror flick, and as a horror comedy, I can't say it was very scary or all that funny. Although it is pretty damn good psychological horror. For race mixers. The biggest failing for Get Out is its story, which was also written by Peele. Surprise, surprise. So I'm going to go through that, spoilers and all, to give you, dear viewer, the full picture. Tab out if you don't want the movie ruined for you, but if you do, check that the coast is clear, then sit back and relax, while I give Whitey the ammunition to tear this movie down without having to bring up the racial fire-stoking even once. We begin with this black dude walking through a suburban neighborhood and talking on his phone, supposedly to the person who asked him out here. After telling his friend he's a sore thumb in such a setting and complaining about how he can't navigate the area, he hangs up and continues talking to no one about navigating the area. Immediately, this is a red flag. It isn't voiceover narration with the character explicitly breaking the fourth wall to address the audience, but it's still the scriptwriter narrating to the audience what's happening on screen, and sloppily at that. The character explains to the person on his phone, cough, the audience, cough, that he's in a suburb and that he finds it creepy, just in case we didn't get that. Then he hangs up the phone and keeps narrating. But I talk to myself all the time, ER. Well, congrats, you little shit. Check for cameras. Okay, I'll cut the movie some slack. We're only a minute in, and hey, it's nighttime and the guy might be a little freaked out being in the most benign setting one could be in. But it's still unfamiliar to him, and besides, talking to a friend or oneself is a way of relieving stress. So maybe the movie's not being that lazy. Well, it is, but let's pretend for a moment it's not. A car drives by, then does a U-turn and stalks the black guy as he simultaneously gives us a running commentary about it. Quick question, which is tenser? This? Or this? Doody 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 doo. Man, I just love swimming with my spindly limbs. Oh, what a glorious day it is to swim. Is that a dolphin fin? If at all possible, don't have your characters talking to themselves. It's bad writing. No, I don't care if you do it in real life. Also, the car radio is blasting the song Run Rabbit Run really loudly.
Run,
rabbit, run, run, run.
Must be for the bass, right? Funnily enough, another semi-recent movie used the same song in a similar manner, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, a movie I'll actually be defending in another video, soonish. I thought that was interesting. The car stops, and the black dude just stares at it in the street and is jumped, strangled, and then dragged to it. Overplaying our hand a tad, aren't we? I mean, I know everyone knows it's a horror movie, so no one's going to be shocked by this scene, but it seriously undercuts everything following it. Ask yourself, what have we just learned from this scene? 1. Someone is out there who can and will nab unsuspecting black dudes. 2. He does this in a white people setting. 3. And it's not for revenge or some other conditional reason, but rather for some nefarious purpose, because this clearly isn't the black napper's first rodeo. I wonder what's going to happen to our main character. Oh, and 4. Somebody lured the black guy there, unless the black napper very fortuitously happened upon a perfect black target in a white neighborhood this very special night, and will in no way be an antagonist later on in the movie. The person who lured the black guy in, likely the one on the phone, who's referred to as Dude, was possibly the black napper, but possibly not. It might be a coordinated effort. It might not. And there you have it. Aside from some particulars, I've given you the twist of Get Out.
I see black people.
Whitey is luring Negroes into their habitat and nabbing them for nefarious purposes. This is supposed to be the twist. Of course, anyone with half a brain knew this from the trailer, because, well, it was a cut of the entire movie anyway. But this scene just goes, yep, that's basically it, right out of the gate. And it's puzzling to think about why. Now, to be absolutely clear, this is kind of how a twist should work.
You mean I'm not white?
A good twist will give the audience the answer right off and in plain sight, then ask the question in a way that hides that answer. The twist should be the part where the story says, "Ha! I already told you this was the answer." And the audience goes, "Whoa!" I think Peele is trying to do that right here. Only the answer he gives at the start is so straightforward and flagrant that when he asks what's going to happen to the protagonist moments later, it can't really be anything but white people gonna lure him into their habitat and
Sure to fuck his shit up.
there aren't really any alternative explanations. No deception is going on here. So, a suggestion before this movie becomes irreversibly mediocre. Get rid of this first scene. Just leave it on the cutting room floor. It'd be much better that the audience be as weirded out as the protagonist when all the weird shit starts occurring. You'd retain far more tension and surprise that way. Let's continue. After the title sequence, which goes on for a touch too long, we meet our main character, Chris, and he's a professional photographer. We know he's a professional photographer because he looks through images on his fancy schmancy camera. We probably could have gleaned his career from the plethora of photographs all around his place, but no, Chris has to be messing around with his camera, even though he's not photographing anything or looking to photograph anything. Great. Chris's girlfriend, Rose, shows up, and then he gets to packing his bags for their weekend trip to meet with her parents, the Armitages. Chris, discomforted by this prospect, asks Rose if her parents know he's black. Seems a wee bit late to be asking that question, Chris, but at least you're asking it. Rose tells him no, they don't, then looks at him all questioningly and asks something like, why? Should they? Yeah, a pretty significant fucking detail about a person, hun. What the fuck? Even Chris's response is all,
Oh, wait, you serious?
although he's shy and embarrassed about it. Rose starts mocking his rather legitimate concern, and by this point you can see that his balls are pretty much in a vice. Meanwhile, I was thinking, is this the trap?
Nigga, run so fast.
Does she target beta males and lure them up to her parents? Seems like a lot of effort as opposed to just jumping fellas in the street. Maybe the first scene was a red herring? Or maybe Peele is hiding the answer with this setup. Then he'd better have a good reason for why this white chick would go to all this trouble to pretend date black guys. I mean it better not be totally unexplained by the end. It'd better not be! We cut to Rose driving Chris to her parents' estate out in the woods somewhere. Chris pulls out a cigarette and Rose takes it from him to throw it out the window while he mumbles his dissent. But this is fairly clever. The smoking habit will come into play later, and it reinforces Chris's passivity. Best of all, it's done very naturally. Finally. Chris calls up his friend, Rod of the TSA, about taking care of his dog. This scene sets up Rod alright, although the dialogue is a little forced. However, there's a line from Rose about how her relationship with Chris is all a ploy to get to Rod. A rare instance of subtlety. Good job. Although, if Rose is luring Chris to disappear him, why did she allow for somebody else, Rod, to A, be told where they're going and for why, and B, have a vested interest in when Chris returns? Like, why wouldn't she insist to Chris they take the dog so that by the time Rod questions anything, it'll be way too late? How hard would it be to just take the dog? Oh, that's right, because your script wouldn't work otherwise. Next. And it's hilarious. Well, to me. I laughed. Chris goes to check on it. Shit's dead. Cops show. I ask, what the fuck? Okay, so if Rose is luring him up here, wouldn't she be the first one to say, don't call the cops? You know, since she might not want to leave a giant donut crumb trail of where they've been? But the cops are white, so maybe they're in on the black napping operation up here. The cops ask to see Chris's ID, which Rose raises a huge stink about because Chris wasn't driving.
Can I see your license, please?
He wasn't driving.
I didn't ask who was driving, I asked to see his ID.
That's racist. So my previous theory's out the window like a black man's cigarette. This would be a smart scene if she were trying to keep the cops from remembering Chris with his ID. But she called the cops out here, something she didn't have to do. And by acting all indignant like this, the cops don't appear in on the whole conspiracy. Unless they're all play acting for Chris's sake. But that's just too far-fetched. This whole scene's kinda dumb. Well, they finally make it to the Armitages, and the parents greet Chris amicably. Then the couple tell them about the deer, and the father, Dean, goes on a tirade about how deer need to be genocided because they're ruining the ecosystem. I like this because, again, it follows naturally. It's a weird thing to rant about, ratcheting up the tension, and it can be explained away as the father's nerves, talking to his daughter's boyfriend. Good. Subtle. Great acting in this scene, actually. Dean shows Chris around the house, then stops at a framed picture of his father as a runner who lost to Jesse Owens to go to the Berlin Olympics. He remarks how awesome it was that Jesse shoved all that Aryan race bullshit in Hitler's face. I don't know, Dean. This scene's important though, because Dean says his dad never got over that loss. Chris is then introduced to Georgina, the black servant. Chris is a little weirded out because Georgina acts like a goddamn robot. Then he and Dean go outside and they see the other black servant, Walter, who stares at Chris like a lunatic. Dean assuages Chris's concerns about him being a white slave owner by claiming he hired Walt and Georgina to take care of his parents, who passed away, and so he kept the two of them on, even though he hates how it looks. This would be a good setup for the reveal that Walter and Georgina are Dean's parents, as a matter of fact. Yes, we'll get to that. But the thing is, the Armitages are trying to lure Chris in by pretending to not be racist. So instead of having blacked grandpa and grandma be extended relatives or visiting neighbors or anything that doesn't resemble slaves, they have them pretend to be servants. What? And why are the grandparents so awkward? It's not like they have to act enormously black or anything. Just greet the man like not massive tards. It's creepy, I get that, but it's also dumb. Here I thought they were brainwashed or zombies. But nope, they are white people and black people bodies, and it seems to have taken its toll on them. Anyway, Dean says he would have voted for Obama a third time, and Chris agrees that Obama was a great president. And this is a terrific way to set up why Chris is so dense that he doesn't pick up on any of the bullshit until way too late. Really sly, but I saw what you did there, Peel. Chris, Rose, and the parents all sit down and ask Chris about his parents, and I think he says he's an orphan. I'm not sure what happened to his dad, but when did they ever? And his mom was killed in a hit and run. So nobody gonna miss you, eh? Dean notices a little telltale tick that Chris is badly missing his smokes. So he offers that his psychiatrist wife, Missy, hypnotized the habit out of him. Chris is all, nah, for once showing a bit of backbone, and the matter's dropped. As well as the bomb that the family circle of friends are coming up tomorrow for their annual get-together. And Rose is just so shocked by this. Like, so shocked. Oh my god, that's crazy. It's a 1 out of 52 chance, but it just so happens to be this one weekend. How did I not know this, babe? What? This is so dumb. Rose's bro, Jeremy, shows up, which Rose is entirely unsurprised to see, even though she was just so shocked about the get-together a moment ago. And we cut to dinner time, where Jeremy acts like a martial arts-obsessed psychopath, getting across that he might be a threat later on. Later in bed, Rose accuses her parents of racism, which I guess is some reverse psychology to make Chris think they're only racist by trying their hardest not to be racist. Sleepy time, but Chris gets up for a smoke break outside, and the funniest fucking scene in the movie by far happens. I wish I could say it was intentional, but then it wouldn't have been so goddamn funny. It's that bit from the trailer where Walter's running up at Chris, then at the last second he swerves right. I died. I'm sure this has been mean to death already, but otherwise, there's just no justification for this. Now, if you'll remember, Walter is Dean's father in a black dude's body, and we'll get to that, I promise. So he's the guy who lost to Jesse Owens way back when. Naturally, he'd like running, so sure, he could be out running in the middle of the night. That's believable, that's fine. It's just the part where he's playing chicken with house guests while out on his nightly jog. Maybe he was having flashbacks to the Olympics qualifying round, mistook Chris as Jesse, and was like, "Race me, Jesse, I got you this time!" Everything about this moment is utter hilarity. From Walter pistoning his limbs so intensely, Chris veering back like, "What?" to the last minute swerve. I love it, but it is the dumbest thing ever. It is impossible to take seriously. Walter disappears into the night, and Chris, a bit shaken, turns back to the house and jump scare noise! Georgina's looking out the window at him! Or, no, she's actually looking at her reflection in the window and can't see Chris at all. Sure, fuck. Whatever. Chris should be beyond freaked now. So he goes inside, and who's waiting for him downstairs sitting in the dark? None other than Missy, who persuades him to sit with her in her office. Of course, he's hypnotized. To do this, she uses his guilt for not calling the police about his mother. And most importantly, her patented little trick where she scrapes the insides of her teacup with a silver spoon. All this puts Chris in a trance Missy calls the sunken place. Chris suddenly wakes up in bed, like it was all a dream.
It's like none of it ever happened.
Chris heads outside to take a few pictures, ends up trying to chat with Walter, who still acts like a Martian body snatcher, but the man at least apologizes for scaring the shit out of Chris the other night. So that definitely wasn't a dream. Walter then asks if the hypnosis worked.
Wait a minute.
Definitely not a dream. I can't for the life of me justify to myself why Walter would even ask that. Do the hypnosis victims normally answer, "Oh yes, it worked just fine. Thanks for asking"? Is it a question meant to trigger a certain reaction? Why would Walter remind Chris of the hypnosis assault, especially if he were unsure it worked?
This is fantastic. Nobody suspects a thing.
Chris confronts Rose about his hypnosis, citing that the very thought of cigarettes now makes him want to throw up. Alright, so Missy is telegraphing to him that she can attack him at any time with hypnosis. Why? Was it supposed to do something more to him and it failed?
Actually, yes.
Then what the fuck is the plan here? The extended
circle of friends
show up in a funeral procession of cars, so the happy young couple go outside to mingle. From here, we're shown a bunch of not-so-subtle racism trying not to be racism on the part of all the old white folks. The weirdest bits are a lady feeling Chris up and asking Rose how he is in the sack.
So, is it true? Is it better?
Wow. And an old fat dude telling him blacks are now in fashion. Right. Which is why the only way the Armitages could pass off their black grandparents as normal was by pretending they were the servants. They couldn't come up with anything better, but they just fit right in because they're so fashionable. Chris is a touch unsettled by everybody being so dramatically autistic, so when he sees another brother among the Stepfords, he's on that like black on black crime. Except this guy, calling himself Logan, is as autistic as the rest. Doesn't even know what a fist bump is.
Really, nigga?
To make matters worse, he's got a much older white wife. At least I think she's supposed to be white. Chris probably sees the similarities here. White gal with her whipped black boy toy who's acting like an automaton on its last legs of battery life. Yep, time to hightail it out of there, Chris! To make matters worse, sir, Logan is the black-napped dude from the beginning. His real name's Andre, but he's been body snatched by this Logan fellow. Oh, and Chris is actually acquainted with Andre, but doesn't recognize him. Yeah, we'll get to all of that. At this point, the permanent expression of "what in the ever-loving fuck" on Chris's face is pretty hilarious. I don't think that was intentional, though. Chris gets away from all the oddists, then meets Jim Hudson, a famous art dealer who happens to admire Chris's work. For some reason, this doesn't set off every alarm bell ever, namely, why the fuck are you here? Are you part of the fucking family? Why didn't anyone ever mention? Why did this never come up in conversation? Oh, did I mention the art dealer's blind? Fucking blind! Chris heads into the house where the party's still going. The airwaves flooded with chatter. And when he's about halfway up the stairs, everybody just stops talking all at once. The house goes completely silent. Chris doesn't notice this. I think it was about this point that I gave up, like an hour in. I couldn't really believe in anything happening on screen. I'm surprised it even lasted that long, honestly, especially after. but we'll continue anyway. Chris is now paranoid that Georgina's unplugging the charger from his phone to keep him from calling Rod, even though if she really wanted to do that, she should just take the battery out, run it under some water, and put it back in like nothing ever happened. But no! Chris calls Rod anyway, because it's as simple as plugging the charger in, Georgina. And after complaining about all the autism, Rod tells him he's probably hypnotized.
I don't know if you know this. White people love making people sex slaves and shit.
It's the black people out here too. It's like all of them miss the movement.
Because they probably hypnotized.
Rod's right, of course, but Chris doesn't believe him, upsetting me greatly. Chris hangs up and Georgina comes into the room to apologize, still acting like a Martian and crying while smiling way too fucking wide. Chris still doesn't make the connection between that and Rod's accurate hypothesis, upsetting me greatly. Chris heads back outside, presumably looking for Rose, but the white folks surround him like some reverse Oreo. A Japanese guy, out of nowhere, asks Chris if he thinks being an African American is advantageous or not in the modern world, because they're planning to snatch his body. Chris passes the question off to Logan, while surreptitiously attempting to snap a photo of him with his phone, with the flash on. The flash causes Logan to go still. His nose begins bleeding, and then he starts rushing Chris, screaming for him to get out.
Yo.
Sorry, man.
Get out! Yo!
Work the title in there.
Nigga, get the fuck out of here.
Skip ahead a bit, and Chris calls Rod about this fiasco, sends the picture of Andre, and Rod tells Chris, yo, that's Andre, our mutual acquaintance, then reminds him that Andre disappeared months back.
Apparently, a whole bunch of brothers been missing in this suburb.
But it's cool.
So let's recap. Chris just happened to run into Andre again after the dude went missing, and Chris happened to trigger the one thing that breaks the body snatching conditioning, even though Chris didn't recognize him at all to think about taking a picture for that reason. But because of that picture, Chris later recognizes him because Rod immediately recognizes him, the guy they both happen to know but never brought up until precisely that moment. Also, Chris and Rod decide not to call the cops about this. Classic horror movie. There's this word, contrived. The more your story happens to be this word, the less your story is any good. And Get Out is Contrivance City.
I'm sorry that you think my movie is, what's the word you use? Contrive.
Chris has a meltdown and convinces Rose they need to go home early because shit's finally gotten too weird for him. No. Plus, you know, Logan is Andre. So it's time to get the hell out of Dodge. While this is happening, the old white folks and the Japanese guy play silent bingo. Okay, it's not totally silent bingo because the blind guy wins. The irony of that really tickled my funny bone. Obviously, this isn't real bingo, but an auction to sell off Chris's body. Here's a question. Why not just have a silent slave auction? Why dress it up like bingo at all? Is there a justifiable in-story reason for this? Well, because the audience is watching, and nope. As Chris anxiously packs his bag in Rose's room, he coincidentally notices a mini closet door hanging open. He looks inside. Shoebox. Opens shoebox. Full of pictures of Rose burning the coal. All the coal. The whole coal mine, by which I mean she's ensnared a bajillion black dudes. That's right, Chris, you're dating the world's biggest whore. How does that make you feel? Stranger still, she doesn't appear to have aged while banging all these black dudes. It took her like 5 months to nab Chris, so let's say, optimistically, she brings in 3 dudes a year at most. Then she's still got at least a few years worth of dudes in that their shoebox, but she looks relatively the same in all of the pictures. I don't know why I found that so odd compared to, well, everything else happening, but it stuck out to me. Rose is there, by the way, having watched Chris fuss about in her closet, but he pretends everything's just fine, instead of calling her the fuck out on her being the most gigantic slut ever, or beating her over the head with his camera and stealing the keys to the car. They head downstairs to leave, except the fam stops them in a shocking turn of events. And whoa, Rose betrays Chris and doesn't give him the fucking keys.
Something I should have foreseen.
And Missy puts Chris back in the sunken place. And that's the end of our idiot protagonist.
Everybody hates Chris.
Or so one would think. Like one would really think. Instead, Chris wakes up, strapped into a big comfy chair in front of an old television set. Why? Because he can't die yet or there's no story. That's why.
I want to play a game.
Chris has shown an old video where an elderly white man, presumably pre-op Walter, explains the coagula procedure, where they take black people, Dean yanks out their brains, puts a white person brain in, and bam! The ultimate wigger! A really shoddy form of immortality. Why do they go out of their way to explain this to their victims? Well, how would the mentally challenged audience know what's going on otherwise? Then a picture of a teacup comes on the TV, a silver spoon starts scraping the insides, and Chris is sent back to the sunken place once again. Meanwhile, Rod of the TSA is wondering why Chris ain't home yet, and rightly comes to the conclusion that his best friend has suffered a similar fate as Logan. Way to go, Rod! Now he goes to the police, where he explains the situation in as fucking off his rocker terms as possible. The sassy black lady cop he's talking to brings in her black coworkers to listen to him, and upon his finishing, they all laugh in his fucking face. Is this supposed to be funny? Because it's not. To me, folks in the theater found it a riot, and it was one of those surreal moments for me where I couldn't decide if something was fucking wrong with them or myself. But I certainly can't be expected to take this scene seriously. Like, who listens to the story of a guy all panicked about his missing friend, then brings everyone round to laugh? Is this satire about black people? I'm 100% serious. What in the fucking fuck? Rod, being the good friend that he is, disregards the setback and keeps trying to call Chris. Rose eventually picks up and pretends that Chris already left without his phone. And oh my god, you haven't seen him? You went to the police? Oh, what did you tell them? Oh, I told him Chris is missing. That's all. Oh, good. What? Rod puts the call on hold and narrates to the audience, talks to himself, about how Rose is lying to him and he knows Rose is lying to him. He attempts to record the call, but one step ahead. Rose accuses him of being jealous of Chris barebacking her. Nice try, Rod, but no cigar. Rhett. Well, except for the part where Rod could just send the cops directly to the Armitages anyway. 911? Yeah, my friend was supposed to be home 48 hours ago. Here's the address of where he probably disappeared. But neither Rod nor Rose seem to consider this possibility at all. Chris is still stuck in the TV room. He wakes up and watches as Jim Hudson, the blind guy, starts speaking to him from the TV. Chris can talk back because there's an intercom, and Jim explains the phases of the surgery. Phase 1, hypnosis. And that didn't completely work, by the way. The movie even goes out of its way to say that at one point.
I think she got in my head.
Yeah, and it worked, I thought.
No, it did not. It didn't work.
Is this phase not important to get right for the overall procedure? Phase 2 is mental prep, which is the insanely transparent justification for all of this exposition. Yes, they have to explain how the procedure works to the patient for the procedure to work. This is anime levels of expository dialogue, my friends.
なあ、君は確かに優秀な FBI 捜査官だった。しかし今は僕のフィアンセでしかない。もう君は捜査官じゃないんだ。
Phase 3 is ripping his brain out. Alright, now we get to why. Immortality, obviously. But why black people? Well, some folks just want to be stronger, faster, and cooler, says Jim. Okay. Not traits specific to black people. Faster, sure. Stronger, a hard no. Cooler, up to you. They're not even bigger down there. They are a few centimeters shorter on average. I'm talking about the length of their shins, of course. What about life expectancy, though? If you're doing this for immortality, why would you choose the race with, even under the best circumstances, a far lower life expectancy and with much higher rates for things like heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, and cancer?
Oh my god!
Well, that's because they're not actually doing it for immortality. They just want to be black.
My social commentary.
Alright, that's that question answered. Yet that's tiddlywinks compared to the biggest question that never gets fucking answered. Why go through the whole rigmarole of having Rose date black guys for a few months when you can just do Jeremy's thing and kidnap them? Like, this entire process doesn't make sense. Do you need willing participants for hypnotism and that's why they're enticed first? No, you fucking don't, because Andre wasn't. Or why would the Armitages still be playing playing pretend the moment Jeremy showed up. Why not knock Chris the fuck out then and there? Force hypnotize him because, unlike real hypnosis, this teacup shit clearly doesn't care if the target is willing or not. Make sure the hypnosis completely takes, then get on with the auction. There's no reason good enough for everything that happens, aside from the fact that Peele needed a story, and damn if it made sense. Everyone's saying this movie's good? Please tell me why. Am I missing something? I honestly don't think I'm particularly observant compared to most people. I took that ball passing test, and I missed Leslie Jones the first time, but something's up here. Anywho, Jim explains more of the coagula procedure to Chris, and how they'll leave his brainstem intact to keep shit connected. So Chris will still be in there, albeit in a very limited way. This is supposed to explain why the body-snatched blacks act like total tards, but raises the question, why would anyone want to undergo this procedure if they're going to come out the other end a total tard? I guess it beats death, but they're acting like there aren't any drawbacks, even though they're well aware of the drawbacks. Chris goes around pointing a fucking camera at all of the blacks for half the movie, and none of them or the whites show any concern about flashing. That's just one of the inconveniences they flat out ignore. Is it really believable that they just overlook them or not care? I went to the internet for answers, and as always, I wasn't disappointed. This commenter had a splendid theory I thought I'd share.
I am wondering why no one has caught the fact that they kept the black people in the sunken place. Why keep their souls? Why not just take over the body completely, and what part of the brain did they keep to maintain that soul? I think it touches on the old saying black have about white people, that they have no souls. Two souls would not be able to occupy the same body, so one would have to not have a soul to begin with. Therefore the grandfather discovered a way to take control over the body but leave the soul intact. That way they not only are body snatchers but soul snatchers too. That has such a deeper meaning than just taking over bodies. Why not just kill them completely and do a complete brain transplant? That way they don't have to worry about the black person coming out during a flash. I think it's because they can't. It won't work. The black body needs a soul to operate. HMMMM.
Thanks for your insight, Belinda. Jim don't give a shit about being a tard though, and he most assuredly couldn't care less if Chris is black. He just wants the boys' functioning eyeballs. Chris is put back in the sunken place via the TV teacup, and Jeremy comes in to take him to where the procedure will actually take place, because the Armitages weren't smart enough to deposit him in that room to begin with. But if they were that smart, then Chris wouldn't have had the chance to fucking brain Jeremy. Yeah! Yep, Chris was only pretending to be in the sunken place this time because he tore up his cushioned armrest and stuffed the cotton in his ears to block out the noise of the teacup. Get it? A black man picked cotton to save his life. The irony, I guess. This all hinges on the viewer not asking a few questions, as usual. Like, why did Chris pretend to be put in the sunken place the moment he saw the teacup? Did he assume he was being watched? By the audience? It's quite possible since the room was already bugged. But if he were being watched, then they could have seen him stuffing the cotton in his ears, and that'd be a bit weird not to check up on. But I'm happy Chris finally got to be a bit crafty. There's a real character arc to him, from pussified wimpy prey to the first black guy to take the initiative to survive a horror movie. Good for him. Chris goes around killing everybody in the house, as well he should. Sets the house on fire, as well he should. Then steals a car, as well he should. Calls the police, as well he should. Then rams the car into Georgina by accident.
Grandma got run over by a
What he shouldn't do is drop the call and drag Georgina into the car because he feels bad. But that's exactly what he does, in spite of the fact that he knows Georgina is not her own person anymore. He knows this. He's been informed explicitly and unambiguously on how the procedure works. It's not like he's a white knight either after murdering the shit out of Missy. I know you feel awful about your mom, Chris, but this goes beyond stupidity. And you were on such a streak, too. You nearly had this. Why do you have to be so painfully moronic? Oh right, this is a horror movie. By the way, Rose, who hasn't been killed yet, heard the car impact, and she comes out to shoot her ex dead, but he zooms off. Lucky for Rose, Grandma wakes up in the passenger seat and is not especially grateful toward Chris for setting her house on fire, murdering her family, and hitting her with a car. Who would have thunk she'd react this way? Grandma makes Chris crash the car, killing her, but Chris survives. But he ain't out of the woods yet, as Walter tackles him to the ground like a linebacker. Chris manages to flash wall, bringing back to the surface, then tricks Rose to get a hold of her gun, because gunshot blasts aren't flashy at all, then shoots her and kills himself. All's well that ends well. Except Rose survived and Chris has to choke her out. She seems to enjoy it too, the kinky bitch. But then thank the loud, the cops show up. Oh no, shit, the cops were white. They'll see a black man killed all of these white folk, and 2 black people as well, but minor details, and conclude that Chris is a crazy racist killer because they're racist. Nope, wait, it's Rod of the TSA. Whew. He picks up Chris, says I told you so, as well he should, and they drive off into the night. It's a happy ending. Especially for Peele. Over $200 million on a budget of $4.5 million? Holy fuck! I honestly commend you, man. I wish I knew how you did it. I wish I knew how people enjoyed this. Peele made a valiant effort though, I'll give him that. This is his directorial debut, as well as the second feature-length film he scripted. It could have been a lot worse.
Oh, you trying to die today?
Nah. This might seem like a tangent, but when the erotica novel 50 Shades of Grey hit it big, fastest selling novel in human history big, we deservedly mocked it for its untalented, unremarkable, plain Jane protagonist, allowing middle-aged housewives and millennials in denial to self-insert themselves into the fantasy of a possessive billionaire groveling at their feet and then beating them. I haven't forgotten the cucumbers left behind in the theaters, ladies. And man, we gave them a hard fucking time about that book, didn't we? How could so many women be so dumb as to like this slop? Why couldn't they see it for the horrible Twilight fanfiction that it was? Did they really think a girl so boring and unexceptional could be so magnetically attractive to compel a rich white billionaire to desperately lust after them? I mean, her? Yet here we have 50 Shades of Black doing a very similar thing. Black people are so magnetically attractive to all of these rich liberal white people that they not only lust after them, they have to be them. They don't really care so much about them as people, but as status symbols. Chris is an outlier in that he's wanted for his talent, his eye for photography, but that's constrained to only him. The rest of the Armitage's victims are black napped solely because blacks are desirable for them and their wealthy liberal friends.
It's going to be Maria.
Ashley, I am so sorry. Can you come with me? It's lovely to meet you.
Naked hug.
You can give me a less naked hug. Thank you, my darling. Thank you so much. Bye. No problem. Today has been the best experience I could have asked for, and I would love to do it again. You two are now a couple!
Unlike the aforementioned erotica novel, Get Out means to shine a spotlight on this absurdity, rather than pander to it, as far as I can tell. More specifically, Peele's intent is, seemingly, to point out and satirize the prevailing attitude of black fetishism among liberal elite.
This was really meant to take a stab at the liberal elite that tends to believe we're above these things, I should say.
I think Peele is advertently mocking cucks, and mocking them pretty damn hard. And hey, that's great. Personally, that's a message I can get behind. It's not the entirety of the message
that racism itself is a demon,
and I somehow doubt it's what a lot of moviegoers broadly took away from Get Out, but it's there, and I appreciate the attempt to communicate it, so it kind of pains me to have to say. It's still a message trapped in an exceedingly mediocre movie. I'd go a step further and say the laser-focused adherence to the message, no matter how much I might have agreed with it, probably hurt this movie for me more than it helped. It looks as if energy that should have been devoted to crafting a tighter, more coherent story was diverted into propping up the elements of satire, and so the story suffered as a result. I guess what I'm trying to say is, story should come first. The message, if you really want one, should be secondary. Yes, I admit it. I'm a fictionist. So as it stands, Get Out isn't a good movie. If you want to go against the grain a bit, you could even call it a bad one. In my opinion. And that might be a little harsh, since, well, it's a horror flick. Since when are those any good? But it is what it is. Furthermore, Get Out doesn't get Peele's message across exceptionally well, even after adding up the brownie points for satirization. Although there was one message, or moral of the story, I should say, that I thought was imparted pretty excellently. They stayed unerringly consistent on it the whole way through. It's that age-old advice your mother always gave you, and it's something to be taken to heart. Don't mix your whites with your colors, or the colors will Tune in next time when I delve into the historical inaccuracies of the Oscar-nominated movie Hidden Figures.
3 Negro women are chasing a white police officer down the highway in 1961. That is a God-ordained miracle.
Where Hollywood tries to legitimize the idea that black women made significant contributions to the US space program by lying and making almost everything about the story up. Except the names. And some of the names too. But at least the title is 2/3 accurate.
Yo, and it's the black people out here too. It's like all of them missed the movement.
Why are you so scared, my nigga? Scared to lick the butt, but the butt is right next to the pussy.